Pylon show.
Oh, okay. Sorry guys, they told us 5 people are going to show up. There's a lot more than I expected, but thank you. Thank you all for coming. The Pylon Show is a StarCraft talk show. We're going to talk a lot about StarCraft Remastered today, and I'm one of the hosts. The other host is a super handsome devil down there, Dan Artosis Demkoski. Oh, yeah. You guys have heard of him. So they watched that Hearthstone tournament like 6 years ago. This is the Hearthstone stage. We're not alone, though. We got some awesome guests for you guys. I know that you've heard of this guy. Watch this stuff. You might have taught a bunch of you how to play StarCraft. Sean Danine Plot is here.
Auf Deutsch übersetzen, wa? Darin.
Glad to be here, Jeff. Thank you for coming. And if you're playing StarCraft Remastered, largely in part, you're only able to do that because there's super smart people that they imported from Australia to do that. Lead engineer Grant Davies is here with us as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, and thank you guys for doing the Pylon show as well. It really is fantastic.
He's really soft-spoken, so I'll retranslate everything he says for you guys. You can trust me. I speak very well. We got a quick show for you guys, but if you're interested in this conversation, we do the show every Wednesday, 5:45 on In-Control TV, and then it's back on YouTube on Artosis TV. It's a Pylon show. We have a lot of great guests. Talk StarCraft. So we're going to talk about StarCraft Remastered. And I know you have the first topic for us.
I do. We had a very special show match last night between the winners of the 2 leagues that myself and Tasteless, your brother, and our, person that we work with a lot, the lovely Tasteless. The ASL versus KSL show match. Of course, we had Last versus Rain. And I just want to see what you guys thought about that, if you got to catch it.
I still feel like Last can win it. I still feel like that. I wanted him to win so bad. I feel like Last is so much better than Rain. Rain's amazing, but I feel like Last is like just under Flash level. And then Sparkle. I don't know how you win on that map as Terran.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you when I figure that out, but I hope the map is never used again, so...
What would you get? I mean, did that matchup show kind of the evolution of TVP right now for StarCraft Remastered? Like, it's just changed so much over the years. Last goes into it as kind of, they call him Alpha Go, right? Like, he's supposed to be the mechanical kind of god player. And then Rain is one of the hardest working Protoss I've ever seen. So it was a 3-1. They went kind of quick, actually, which is kind of funny because some StarCraft Remastered matches can be like when you and Nick had to cast a couple, you're like, well, we're here for 13 hours. This is very long. So that was quick, though. It was like an hour and a half, maybe, tops.
Yeah, it's still so interesting to see Brood War strategy evolving over time, because, I mean, like, the Terran versus Protoss matchup has had a lot of, the barracks, bunker, I repair with a billion SCVs, and then I stabilize on 2 bases, and then we play a game. And there were 2 interesting things to me. One was that when Last was trying to be cheesy and sneaky, he would still put the bunker at the front to try to, like, feint a fast expand, and then, do that really nice 2-factory build that won him a game. But Rain somehow was going like 2 Zealot openings on Third World, like the early Zealot rush on Gladiator, and managed to like break the front. And you're not supposed to break the front. That's not how it's supposed to happen. Unless it's one of my ladder games, then of course I'm really weak with Terran, so.
Well, the Zealots come after me, I know what you mean, but the game has actually evolved so much. It's really crazy, because I mean, we all played 20 years ago, and for many years competitively, but to have it kind of coming back up again now and seeing these different strategies that the pros are using, and the fact that they work, this is something I would see before, and I'd be like, oh, you don't even know what you're doing, but these are the best players in the world.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that stands out to me about Last is how resilient he is as a player. There's a number of times, and particularly going back to his KSL victory, where he 4-0'd Jadon. But there were a number of times in those games where it looked like he was really down, and he's just the sort of player that doesn't matter what's going on, he just looks at it and he says, this is fine. And a few minutes later, he's won the game.
Yeah, he really kind of grinds it out, but, I mean, a single best of 5, what I always say, the Protoss always wins, right?
Was it surprising to you guys? I think it was Lou's choice for the map. Were you guys surprised that he chose Sparkle for the 4th map?
It's funny, too, because I felt like part of the reason, surprise.
Yeah.
But we were talking a little bit about it behind the scenes, and I guess, like, Flash, who is just for years been the pathfinder, the guy that so many people model their play after, and Last being one of those big ones as well. the two-port Wraith and just kind of the different playstyle to hopefully catch somebody off guard. It seemed to be that they were kind of following that way, but it was also funny to see though, like sometimes when you bust out kind of I don't know, like a weird strategy in a match like that, Rain made it look bad. Like the final game was unfortunately pretty anticlimactic because his idea just didn't work. It's kind of a funny Brood War thing too. Like you'll try these ideas. Because in StarCraft 2, you try ideas and there's like a little bit more of a gentle way of being like, no, stupid idiot, like that was wrong. And you're like, oh, okay. But in Brood War, you're like, you're dumb, get out. And you're like, oh, okay. And that felt like that kind of moment a little bit.
Yeah, see, I enjoy ragging on Sparkle as a map. And, you know, just in the long history of Brood War, there's been essentially no island map.
They try to make it work.
Like, every now and again, there's some map maker at OGN who's like, I think this is the season for an island map. And then Zerg goes like 0-40. And it's really bad. But at the
That was
same
me.
yeah, right. Well, at the same time, if you look at times when there were strategies that were really dominant, like when Flash pulled out he did this 160 supply +2/+1 opening in like 100% of his games. I think that was in the, oh God, what was the Golden TV Classic?
Oh.
He was only doing that in every single match. And Protosses just couldn't beat it for a while. But it could be done on all maps, pretty much. And so Protosses kind of had to figure it out. And I'm always wondering if people were given enough years on Sparkle or enough years on island maps, if new strategies would actually develop and we'd start to see a stable meta. Because, I mean, if you aren't exactly certain of what you're doing in Brood War, you lose immediately.
Yeah.
Like, instantly. People have been playing this for 20 years. They exploit every little advantage so much.
They're still finding new things. But well, that was Last versus Rain. If you guys missed it, I think it's a VOD on StarCraft's channel or something like that. It was a great series, and there's more ASL and KSL happening, which is actually a fantastic segue here. Our next topic is just going to be StarCraft Remastered Esports is happening quite a bit right now. There is both these Star Leagues, if you will. There's a lot of, we did some events as well with the Foreigners. There's just a lot kind of coming up. So Grant, how cool is it for you to kind of work on a game like this? I know, and I want you to speak a little bit to this. The people that worked on this game, they're all StarCraft players. It's not like people that are unfamiliar with the lineage of this game. And now you guys are seeing Flash and Jadong and some of these players taking on what you've worked on and doing something with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And like you say, the developers are fans of StarCraft. They do play it. We recently took on an engineer this year, I think, Tayoon, who's a Korean American. He's the best StarCraft player in the office. Surprise, surprise. But we are passionate about it. We all watch KSL and ASL, and it's amazing now that we have a new league in KSL, so that we've got pro StarCraft all year round. It's fantastic.
Yeah, just having two leagues in Korea again, this was kind of the sweet spot back in the day, as we call it, right?
Oh,
When
nice
all of
air
the-
quotes.
Well,
yeah.
it's a weird thing to say because I feel like StarCraft's doing better now than it really ever has been. But to have the two leagues going on, all the pros returning, even after their military service, being able to show that they're really strong once again, and everyone's streaming their play now. It's so different from what it used to be, but I'm enjoying it, I feel like, even more.
Yeah, because it used to be so insular. You had no idea how these strategies were emerging or why. You would just kind of, you know, in my case, wait till it was 2 a.m. and then stay up way too late before your college classes and just admire all these really cool strategies. And I think it was maybe a year ago now at this point where Flash was convinced that in Zerg vs. Terran, there was a way that Terran could go a 1-1-1 style, one barracks, one factory, one starport, which StarCraft 2 is a little more common, definitely way more stable because you have only vultures are good against Zerglings. And Wraiths are bad against Mutalisks, but they're still the best thing you got with a 1-1-1 to be able to hold off what Zerg's doing. And Flash was losing like 90% of his games on stream doing this. And everyone was just making fun of him on his stream because Korean Africa chat is a lot like Twitch chat, honestly. They're like, look at him losing, oh my god, maybe try 1-1-1 in Terran versus Terran Flash. And then he figured it out and had almost a 100% win rate. And then all of a sudden, all these Zerg players are struggling so much. And now Zerg openings are having to change to get much faster spires. And they're actually skipping Zergling speeds so that they can be stable and tech at the same time. And it's just so fascinating to get to watch that on a stream. It's not that it suddenly emerges and people are confused.
And it's kind of cool because we get to learn while we watch it, because before it would be like Flash would be doing this behind closed doors. right, for months, and you wouldn't even know he's doing it because he's doing it with his pro team.
Yeah.
And then he'd come out and win a single map with that build, and you'd be like, what was that? And you just wouldn't have any idea how to do it against anything. There'd be all these little tiny pieces that you can't put together from watching one VOD.
Yeah, that's been, for me, the most, I would say the most fun part about kind of the reemergence of StarCraft Remastered is that it's one thing to play it, and we all play it to our varying degrees of crap, you know, and we try as hard as we can, but when you put it in the hands of these, like, gaming gods, and it sounds super hyperbolic, but it's actually really, really true. It's so fun to watch them do that, because Brood War has an element to it that is like, they're doing something that I cannot do. I will put in hours, I will practice, I will do everything I can. I cannot execute like that. When I watch the best, I don't know, Overwatch players in the world, I'm like, I can absolutely do that, right? No,
I'm just kidding.
but it has that like sport quality to it because it's the same thing. I grew up playing sports. I really enjoy that. But when I watch a professional team do something, I'm watching because these are superhumans performing something that's amazing. And with Brood War, I get a lot of that. So it's just, and the other part that is amazing is it's not just the players. The game is an anomaly in and of itself too, because like Sean talked about, Flash was like, I have an idea. 18, 20 years later or whatever, he's like, I think it can work. And he tried it, and it didn't work, but he's like, no, I'm really smart. I feel like I can make this work. And then he did, and now the 1-1-1 is like the gold standard for what Terrans are going to try to do in that matchup. And a lot of them, it's like, you guys often talk about this in your broadcast, but like, there's some Terrans that just can't figure it out. And if they execute one part of it, they just lose. And that's the kind of tightrope you walk, which is not made for the masses, it's made for watching.
And I mean, so much of that is, it requires so much mental fortitude to just lose a lot in StarCraft. It sucks losing in Brood War. It is rough, especially when you're trying so hard and you're managing so many things. Just doing the same build that you've been doing for like 10 years. Oh yeah, that's hard to do. And then to watch pros not just like Flash trying out new things and coming up with new strategies and just having a general sensation that something's out there and then figuring it out. But also to what you were saying earlier, Grant, like Last's resilience, I think one of the hallmarks that we're getting to see of the tip top pros after all these years, they're so good at getting thrown off their game and weaving their way back to a stable spot. It's so hard to do. I think it's possible to practice a lot, and within a year you can do top builds as long as you don't get thrown off. But what was the series? I think it was Rain versus Light in the recent ASL or KSL, where like it was a 2 racks opening from Light and destroyed almost all of Rain's probes, and it was a 45-minute game.
Yeah, it went down
was
to
insane.
a Dragoon and 3 probes. 45 minutes later, Light was able to finish him off. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised he won that show match.
And there's a funny difference in the two games too, I find. And again, with StarCraft Remastered having this vibrant esports scene, I'm seeing more of that. But like, we were watching the series last night with a lot of the StarCraft 2 casters. There was some of the damage that was done, and they were like, oh, he's dead. No, that's it. And I was like, well, hang on. I was like, if he started a factory, he should be okay. He actually hadn't started the factory when like 3 Dragoons were shooting the bunker. Started the factory and was still able to make it into like a full-fledged game. And it's like, it's weird to say non-lethality of Brood War, but it kind of is just like the general durability of everybody is deceiving, because we also, when you play it, you're like one mistake away from actually losing. So when you have all these top-tier players playing, it seems a lot more durable than it maybe actually is.
Crazy. Getting back to something you said a little earlier, Jeff, that people are watching StarCraft, not necessarily even playing it anymore. And I think it's really cool that StarCraft was the original esport, and now it's one of the first esports that's becoming a sport that people can watch and no longer play in the same way that people watch traditional sports, but they may just sit on the couch and not play those sports. I think that's a really cool narrative. The viewership of both these tournaments, KSL and ASL, is really encouraging.
Yeah, I think it's actually like the closest to real sports. It's like everyone watches American football, but those people that are watching American football on Sunday are not actually playing American football, right?
Have you seen them?
And with StarCraft 1, it's like we actually get really good viewership. It's like, no, I queue up on the ladder. These people are not all playing this game. You're more just watching it because it is so hard. You do lose so much, and it can be painful. It takes so much time to put in to actually have those really strong games.
Well, I want to move this conversation because you're touching on something that's really near and dear to me as well. Like this, one of the coolest things about this game is that it stretches so much time, right? Like I was a 12-year-old boy when I first kind of started playing this, and now I'm a 21-year-old strapping young guy. So it's just been, right. You haven't seen my driver's license. It could be true. It's just one of the most fun parts for me is just the different parts of our life that this game has impacted. And when I meet a lot of you guys out there as well, one of the most fun things for me to hear is they're like, my older brother used to watch you, or in some really weird cases, they're like, my dad used to watch you. And I was like, well, get out of here. Like, get back in the crib. But it's just, it's just been, because it is that watching game, it's a game that a lot of us, we played some custom maps, or we laddered a bit, but it also is a game that I think a lot of people hold near and dear to their hearts. So I'm going to ask you guys, what are some of the experiences you've had with the game, or where has it touched you in your life that has made you feel good? Who wants to go first?
I mean, I've talked a lot about the stories of when I was, really young, playing. Me and Nick, we had a 3 o'clock rule at home. You can't play video games until 3, and so we just talk about StarCraft.
It's like video game vampires, I guess.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, for me, something that's just been really wonderful in the last 18 months is staying up late and screwing up my sleep schedule, watching ASL and KSL, watching you and Nick. And it just feels so like home again, because when, you're young and you're in high school, and I really didn't have the best time in high school, getting bullied and stuff, and StarCraft was like an important thing for me. It was how I connected to people. And then I went to college, which, the internet was not a huge thing back then. So it's not like online communities and social media really existed. For me, it was StarCraft, like getting to be, like I felt like I had a sense of home, and then the same thing going to grad school, and the same thing leaving grad school. And it's so cool that I'm like 32 now, or 21 in most cases. Yeah. I'm 32 now, I'm still just getting that same warm, homey feeling. It's so great.
What about for you, Dan? This is a game that there's a lot of videos of you talking about this being like the biggest part of your life, one of the biggest parts of your life.
I mean, it has been basically the biggest part of my life for about 20 years now. And I used to play all the time, just practice all the time, try to win tournaments, do my best in the American scene and all. But for me now, it's just so interesting because I'm back playing it as much as I can. And the amount that I've changed in 20 years, I went from, a 15-year-old just playing in his mom's attic. Now I have 3 children that sometimes come up and grab my arm and make me lose games. I gotta tell you guys that sometimes my opponent beats me and then he'll talk trash. I'm like, I have a child pulling on my arm right now. But it's very different from back when I used to practice, because I would practice really hard, just put a ton of time in, and that would be the grind for the tournament. Now there's not really, I'm not going around winning tournaments anymore, believe it or not. And it's more about finding those hours to cut out to kind of practice and just enjoy that journey of trying to improve myself as a 35-year-old at the hardest game in the world ever made. And it's like you said, it feels like home. It's just, I get so much pleasure out of practicing this. It's like practicing a musical instrument or something like that. It's not changing. You guys are not putting out a balance patch.
I agree.
It's that same old game, and I'm having a great time remastering it.
Oh, wow. Well, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There's not even a teleprompter. You just said that. That was
just
amazing.
came to me, man.
I would say Dan's definition of mastering and Grant, you've been working on the game, but like I said, I got some inside information. You were playing the game back in the day as well, so what is it like being the guy that is in charge of making this game beautiful for us 2018 and 17 folk and whatnot?
Yeah, it's a dream come true. It's something I never thought I'd be doing, and my experience is in some ways similar and in some ways completely different to you guys. Like, StarCraft has always been the game that I played throughout my life, I'm old enough, not 21, I'm much older than that. I'm old enough that I was actually in university when it came out, so I could start playing it straight away. And, I've spent the last 20 years of my life in game development in different studios, and every single studio that I've been in, StarCraft is always the game that people bust out and play at lunchtime or after work. So it's always been a go-to game, I guess. I've always played it terribly. But as Dan said, there's a real joy in learning anything, I think. And StarCraft is a game where there's just infinite learning. Like I feel like you can never get to the end of it. I certainly are a long way from mastering it, but it is just that fun game to play. And I think Day9, you said something on one of your streams, learning when Remaster came out, learning StarCraft again. Pressing the buttons is just fun with StarCraft. Like it's just a fun game to interact with.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like when you have to build out of 6 barracks and you click M, click M, click M, click M, click M, click M. That actually feels so good.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter.
I did say the correct number of clicks too. I was counting them in my mind. Because you got to be careful. I'm going to get a tweet afterwards like, that was 5 click M's, Day9, and I used that conversation. Yeah.
I think it's also irrelevant what skill level you're at with Remastered. As long as you can find other people that are at your skill level, you're going to have a great time playing the game.
And that's what makes it so awesome to look up and be like, how did that person who's a league above me do that? It's one of the few games that I feel like good players, when you play against them, it almost always feels like they're cheating. Yeah, almost always. There's no way you can have 15 Dragoons at that point in time. That's impossible.
Yeah.
My Scourge had to have hit those Corsairs. How are they all still alive? And then you rewatch the replay, and you can just see they're just playing the game, but at such a higher level.
Yeah, and you watch the streams now with KSL and ASL every time there, and so you can match up what they've got, the pros have got, versus what you've got at that time frame. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That can be demoralizing. I promise you, I do that. And like, oh, Flash, you can have that many units. I don't know how. It's very, very difficult.
We got a lot of love for it, but not enough time to talk about it. So, Dan, you want to talk us through this last subject here for us?
Sure. Well, we've been talking about how old the game is, right? 20 years it's been out now. We just had the 20-year anniversary. But the code base itself is even older. I mean, you don't just release a game the day that you program it, and you have to work with that stuff. So what is this like for you working with a code base that's 25 years old?
Yeah, well, some of the code is 25 years old, quarter of a century of code that we're dealing with. So
I don't like wording it that way, to be honest.
But that source file that I'm talking about in particular, that's got Mike Morheim's name at the top of it. He wrote that source file. It's credited to Chaos Studios, which is what Blizzard was called for a brief time back in the 90s. And it's kind of daunting when you're working on source code that the CEO has worked on, or the original Blizzard founders have
That is so cool.
So it is a daunting experience, but the original code is very good and it's very solid. So we kind of work around that and don't touch the gameplay code, as you said. No balance touches.
Well, so with the process of working on that code and going back into this, because this was the first Blizzard game remastered, as far as I know. Did some of the StarCraft folk, like, were you guys in a closet and they like opened the door and like, are you still doing that thing in there? Or, like, did Mr. Morheim come in and be like, careful with that code, you man? I built this empire on that.
Or was there any shame? Like, oh shit, he's gonna look at the code. Oh god.
I mean, so like, what was the atmosphere though? Because this was the first time doing this. Expectations had to be completely like, I don't know what's gonna happen with this. What, you know, how's it go?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was kind of terrifying work on that code. But the expectations were pretty high, and remastering, as you said, like the first remaster we've ever done. So we definitely learned a lot through that process, and now in the show we've announced Classic Games have announced Warcraft 3. So there's going to be a lot of learnings that we'll take from StarCraft Remastered and that we can apply to Warcraft. But it is kind of like, looking at that source code is kind of like an archaeology dig, where you get a sense of what was going on at the company, 25 years ago, 20 years ago. And you definitely have that indie spirit, that startup spirit that was shining through in the way they were approaching coding and the things they were writing. So in a lot of ways, they're not too different from just another indie studio that's operating today.
Yeah.
They just happen to make an amazing game.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's any, interesting details here, but I know that there were so many just system constraints back then that nowadays you just have way more processing power and this sort of thing. Like in terms of the optimizations that you had to deal with back then. Are there any interesting tidbits looking at the code where you'd go, oh, we wouldn't even need to do that at all now, or that wouldn't even be a focus?
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot and in fact now some of those things are actually unwinding and modernizing them to de-risk them, because we see our mandate as taking care of this code not just now, today, but 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. We want people to be playing StarCraft. And as we know from where things were in 1.16, it wasn't working too well on modern operating systems. There was all these rainbow palette things going on. We want to make sure that that's not the case in the future, or at least we're in a position to easily change that if that does become a thing. So, like you say, there's a lot of code where we've looked at it and go, we don't need to do that. Let's rewrite it in a way that's easy to maintain rather than super optimized.
Right.
Well, in kind of updating little pieces of the code and everything, you guys haven't changed the actual gameplay, but you've definitely released a lot of new features in the last year or so since you've released Remastered. What are some of the things you're most proud of about that?
Yeah, like in the last year since we released, I think we calculated the other day we've done about more than 50 patches. So we're averaging about a patch a week. That's slowing down a lot now, but it means that every patch there's not a lot in it because we're doing so many of them. But when you look back from here, you can see some of the bigger features that we've done that I'm really proud of the team. The release of EUD was something that I'm very proud of. I didn't even think that was possible, but our amazing engineer Elias figured out a way to do it, and that brought EUD back for the EUD community. The removal of port 6112 was a big thing for us. I mean, we all remember having to fiddle with our router settings and try to open port 6112. We don't need to do that anymore, so that was a big step forward. The work that we did on turn rates, and we introduced dynamic turn rate, so again, we don't have to worry about predicting what the right turn rate is. We've now got dynamic turn rate for custom games and matchmaking. And the introduction with all these latency changes that we've made, we could introduce turn rates 20 and 24. And of course, turn rate 24 is the LAN turn rate. So it's really cool that people are now able to play with LAN latency on Battle.net over the internet. So those are some of the really cool things. I think the China launch was really good for us. It was surprising to see how many people, what a big passionate community of StarCraft players there are in China. So that was really cool as well. And finally, I'd say that the matchmaker refactor that we did earlier this year was a big thing for us. Now I think we see around 85% of games that are played in turn rate 20 and 24 on the global matchmaker. So 3/4 of the games are played, actually 75% in turn rate 20 and 24, and 85% in turn rate 16 or better. So 3/4 of our games are now played in near LAN latency, which is great.
And I gotta say, it's so nice to just be able to hit find match and to not have the complete randomness of the old Brood War experience. Because sometimes you would like create a game on Python 1v1, and that was like the whole title, and you'd match against someone who like had not played StarCraft before, and you'd be like, oh my god, I feel so guilty. I feel like I'm punching a puppy or something. Like.
Yeah, the quality of life improvements that you guys have put in are just crazy because, it was kind of a mixed bag. Blizzard didn't really mess with StarCraft 1, so we got this beautiful game that didn't get patched forever, but at the same time, not really a functioning ladder or anything. We had to kind of find our own way into that competitive game, and to have the ladder, to have the cleaner interface now, to kind of have the friends list working very well, and the channels back. It's such a nice experience with Remastered now.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the work that the team has done, and as we touched on before, it's a super passionate team about StarCraft, so everyone's really putting in everything to try and get it done. And there's more work to be done on the matchmaker for the forum scene, absolutely, but everyone has definitely pulled together and really.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next. Like, what's next for StarCraft Remastered? We've got this whole beautiful year ahead of us with StarCraft Remastered, esports and stuff like that. But for you as the dev, what are you guys kind of thinking?
Yeah, so it's kind of two streams of development. One is that we are absolutely doubling down on group matchmaking. This is something that we've... Right, yeah.
As group matchmaking enthusiasts.
Yeah. Something that we've alluded to for a long time. Since launch, actually, I know I've been talking about this in my dev update videos, and we kind of promised that it was this year. It's not going to be this year, I'm sorry about that. It's going to push into next year, but I can tell you that we are full steam ahead on group matchmaking. Whether that's going to be rolling out 2v2 first, or maybe we'll have a 3v3 BGH specialized mode first off.
That is the most important mode to put in. After 2v2v2v2 big game hunters matchmaking. Yes. Oh my god, my people. My people, yes. Yes. And I do clap like this. This is how I celebrate things.
Yeah, I think that stuff will be a lot of fun. Once we have group matchmaking, there's a lot more we can do with those different modes. But the other stream of development that we're doing is, as I kind of touched on before, what we call tech debt removal. We do have this kind of baggage of 20-year-old code, and we have to make sure that it's going to work in the future. So something that we're working on now is a 64-bit version of StarCraft, and this is something that really nobody really cares about because the difference between 32 and 64-bit should be nothing for the player. But it's really important that we do this because 32-bit's not going to be around forever. In fact, Apple is going to deprecate it next year. So we really need to make these tech debt removal changes, and it does take a lot of work. We need to make sure that 64 and 32-bit are working perfectly together. So if you guys are still playing on Windows 32-bit, it's time to start about 64-bit.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, moving on from that, you play a lot of StarCraft 1 right now? Are you enjoying it? How about the other people on the team, in the office? How do you guys do against each other?
Why do you sound so accusatory?
Just gotta check, man.
I know, I gotta be honest, I wanna know who's the cheeser. Who's the person that's like still cannon rushing after 500 games?
Yeah.
Like floating factories into the base with the vulture.
Yeah, that's a really easy question to answer. That would be our producer, Matt Sherman.
His full name!
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's on Twitter and everything.
Yeah, he's on Twitter, he's on the forums, you can call him out for being a cheeser, that's fine. We do play a lot of StarCraft in the office. We have, actually every Friday we do a PTG, play the game. So we're playing the latest dev changes that we're doing. So it's a good opportunity for us to play, but we also play just for fun during the week. And yeah, there's definitely a bit of cheesing that goes on back and forth. There's a bit of friendly competition. As I said, the best player is Taeyoon, and the best cheeser is definitely the Shermanator.
How do you play? What's your style? What do you aspire to be?
Well, I like to play random, so I can just get a feel for everything.
So he's a cheeser, by the way.
Yeah, definitely have my
So
cheese.
that's normally what that means.
Do you announce what you spawned as when the game begins?
Oh, no. And if someone asks me, I'll tell them the opposite, I've got every advantage, right?
God, that, because like, in modern StarCraft, you always think in terms of the 3 matchups, but in like 2002, you had to have your verse random build orders where you tried to just mitigate as much risk as possible. And some people would do like 2 out of 3 openings, like, all right, I'm just gonna early expand. Just hatch first, and if it's Zerg versus Zerg, whoops. I can't believe you don't admit what you spawned as. That's so dirty.
I've got a lot of dirty tactics. I mean, the other day we played an FFA game between a bunch of people on the team, and it was not going well for me, I have to say. I was under a bit of pressure, and so I did the age-old cheese where I went in the chat and I said, GG, chat again, has left the game, period, enter. I think that's okay.
I mean, the mere fact they're all laughing and clapping is really bad.
We've all done it. Did it work?
It did not work.
At least you tried.
I tried, right?
I think a free-for-all would be the most crazy place to try that, because that's, I mean, in 1v1 you're asking for one guy to believe you, but in your case you're like, I need 6 people or so to be like, yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
You're also in
That's
the same,
dreaming.
You're in the same physical space, so you can also.
Oh my god. They just glance over, you're still playing.
I started a single-player comp stomp right after that.
Yeah.
No, but you can also you can give them the physical cues that you've left the game. You can kind of get up, walk around a little bit, and then sneak back to your PC.
Yeah, that's a good inter squad practice, because you get one of them to stand up and be like, wow, he left, and then you're like, he believed you. You're like, whoa, you're out of here.
Whole new metagame for cheating your friends in the office. I love it.
Yeah, they weren't super happy when they found out I did that.
Wait. How long did it take for them to find out? Was it like 2 battle cruisers later, and they're like, wait a minute?
Well, they went in. There was 2 people left, Taeyoon and Matt, and they went and battled it out. And then once Taeyoon lost, Matt was like, why isn't the game ending? And that's when he pieced it together.
And did you win?
No, I lost.
Oh my god, that would lie to everyone right now and say you won. That would have been the best story.
I wish it was.
I think only twice in my entire life have I been able to do that. No, these weren't 2v2 big game hunters games, like the finest quality.
Oh, I thought you meant lying. I thought you were about to tell us the 2 times you lied in your life. I was like, wow.
No, are you kidding me? I've lied 10 times
man.
since I've been on this stage, Jeff. Like.
Well, that's very good. Thank you so much for that discussion. We're going to wrap up right now. We actually, like I said, it was a short show, but Before I go through all these guys and talk about what they're going to be doing, I just want to thank you guys for letting us talk about StarCraft. It's been a long time. Thank you. And Dan, many years ago, said that he'll be talking about StarCraft for like 100 years, and we laughed, but it's been 20.
Quarter of the way there, right?
Yeah, I'm getting a little weirded out over here. Well, yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff at Blizzcon. Dan, what are you up to, man? What are you doing?
I mean, we are going to be going back over to the StarCraft 2 stage pretty soon here. WCS. I'm going to be looking for you all there, so make sure you go. I'll remember all of you. You know, other than that, just a lot of StarCraft 1 in the future. We have ASL going on in Korea, KSL going on in Korea, and of course the Pylon show every week. Just go to Jeff's channel, he'll tell you the time.
Some people get that joke, that's good. Grant Davies, you gotta be, I already know what you're up to. You just gotta get back to work, right? StarCraft Remasters, get at it, like go.
Yeah, I gotta get back and do the group match.
Put the gerbils back in the wheel to make sure it's turning right.
But I will be enjoying the remainder of GSL, the StarCraft 2. That's what the grade is, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Sean, what are you up to, man? You got a lot of stuff going on here as well.
Yeah, I actually have to leave. There's a countdown timer that I have to leave in 3 minutes to go to the StarCraft 2 stage, the Mythic stage, to do the StarCraft 2 What's Next panel. You should all come to that, and if you want to say hi, I have no time, because the stage is 10 minutes walk from here, and the show itself starts in 15 minutes. So please come to the StarCraft 2 Mythic stage. It's going to be amazing there. And definitely stay up really late watching ASL and KSL. That's a lot of fun. You and Nick are so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're so good. Yeah. I just wish Nick would iron his shirt.
He brought it to BlizzCon. He asked if he could wear it. They told him no. He's really sad.
Well, bad news for Sean. I prepared a 6.5-minute speech, so just give me a. No, thank you guys so much. Like Dan, I'm going to be over at the StarCraft 2 stage commentating, and then beyond this, we're just really excited to make this show. Thank you to Blizzard for allowing us to get up here on stage and talk about it, and renting out Grant Davis to us. Thank you guys. But that does. You guys have a wonderful BlizzCon, and we'll hopefully see you guys over at StarCraft 2.